So I am here with the wonderful Dr. Linda Moore, who is a psychologist here in Kansas City, and we are going to talk about a sensitive subject that I know touches every woman's life, either yourself personally or through a friend, and it's about estrangement of family members or friends. We all have relationships that end. So Linda, tell me, in your practice of how many years?
Ooh, over 30 right now.
Okay. Have you had patients come to you to discuss a family member that they've had to disassociate with, or a friend?
I would say that's probably one of the most common things.
Wow.
So that people need to know that they're not absolutely off the page if they have that kind of difficulty. It's very common, and I think it's more manageable than most of us think.
And what do you advise based on if it was an abusive relationship or something that's harmful to the person, that it probably is okay, versus if it's emotional?
Yes.
How do you advise based on the situation?
That's a really good way of framing it. Abusive relationships have to be examined from the standpoint of, am I safe? And if I walk back into a relationship where I feel physically unsafe, then that's an okay reason to really, if not totally cut it off, keep it contained, very boundaried, never be with that person by yourself, things of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
If you come all the way to the opposite end of the continuum, there are things that are more manageable than we believe, and typically the reason people get stuck in what to do about a relationship is we have a tendency to want people to think what we think, feel what we feel, and do it the way we would do it. That is not going to happen. And so if we have that as the goal for how to fix an estranged relationship, we're not going to make it. So it's about down on this end where you feel safe, at least physically, assessing what is challenging and painful and difficult versus what's impossible, because you cannot do it by yourself. In other words, it has to be a dialogue, an exchange. So if you and I have had this huge, enormous disagreement, we have to both be willing to come to the table and make ourselves vulnerable. And vulnerable means I have to tell you what I think and feel, and you have to tell me what you think and feel. If I'm willing to let you think and feel what you think and feel, and you're willing to do the same for me, then a dialogue takes place. Does that make sense?
It does.
But I want you to change. That's what happens.
What if, let's go back to a family member. Let's say I'm midlife Mary and my mom's an alcoholic. So I'm not threatened, it's not abusive, but it is something that I don't want my children to be around.
Okay.
So we have a falling out because I've asked her to slow down on her drinking or seek help, but she doesn't. And I've made the decision that I don't want my children around an alcoholic, so I cut ties with mom. But mom wants back in. Is there a way to repair that relationship?
I think what you can decide is, can you spend time with her with appropriate boundaries? And it's not about saying you shouldn't drink and you can't do this and you can't do that. It's about and it's about, I would be glad to see you on days when you are sober. I would be glad to spend some time with you when you've had some sobriety under your belt and I feel comfortable that you are the mom that I know and love. I will have to think about whether I want you to be around the children until you and I have some experiences that go well and I begin to feel confident. And then I would really love for the children to have time with you, but for now it would have to be supervised.
I love how you phrase that positively, because it always feels so negative when something goes awry with a relationship. You take blame, you feel at fault, you feel guilty, and that rephrased it into a positive, that this is what would work for me. And I hope that you can meet me on that compromise.
And you got that immediately. You understood exactly how different that felt. So we have a tendency to want to attach blame. If we pay attention, for example, to what's going on politically, somebody has to blame, to be blame. So in our personal relationships, that's even more intense. So the issue is, how can I speak from the standpoint of what will work for me, and then check it out. And so if we go back to the conversation with mom, I could say those things, and then I could say, would that work for you?
Wonderful.